Our students are living digital lives, and it's our responsibility to help them navigate that terrain where they're spending so much time.
Welcome to Schools In, your go-to podcast for cutting-edge insights in learning. From early education to lifelong development, we dive into trends, innovations, and challenges facing learners of all ages. I'm Denise Pope, Senior Lecturer at Stanford's Graduate School of Education and co-founder of Challenge Success.
And I'm Dan Schwartz. I'm the Dean of the Graduate School of Education and the Faculty Director of the Stanford Accelerator for Learning.
Together, we bring you expert perspectives and conversations to help you stay curious, inspired, and informed. Hi, Dan.
Dr. Pope, it's good to see you.
It's good to see you, too. I'm really excited.
Yeah, this is our first live recording in front of Stanford, period. So it's pretty exciting.
Yes, it is.
So it's digital literacy, and I don't know what it is. So,
you're ignorant.
So here's
Come to the right place.
Here's my guess. I listened to Jane Austen on a podcast, or not on a podcast, but digitally in my car. And so it's like, it's literature, which must have something to do with literacy, and it's digital.
Yeah.
Am I there?
No. First of all, do you really listen to Jane Austen in your car? I don't buy it. Do you?
I was a good humanities.
Okay, yeah.
My minor was English in college. You didn't know that?
You know what? I did know that your minor was, and your major was?
God, I forget. It must have been important.
It was philosophy. I know. This is a very
okay,
literate person, although not digitally literate, I think, as we've just proven. So It's a really good thing that we have an expert here today. So Sam, thank you so much for returning to the pod, and especially in front of this live audience. And I wanted to get us started with just, what is digital literacy, and how do we know when someone is actually digitally literate?
Well, thank you. First of all, thank you for having me. It's an honor to be back on the campus. So what is digital literacy? On the most basic level, it's the ability to go online and discern what is true from what is sham. So a couple of examples. We're in Springfield, Ohio, were Haitians grabbing their neighbors' cats and stringing them up and barbecuing them. This is a claim that ultimately made its way to 67 million Americans. And so the ability to look at something like that and decide, no, I think I better check that out. Now, let me say in the same breath, more recently, what's gone viral is the claim that Elon Musk turned the election using Starlink for Trump, and that actually the winner was Harris. So again, this is the kind of thing that can be established if you know what to do, but if you don't know what to do, you become part of spreading digital pollution. And so that's at a basic level, given how much time and how dependent we are on our digital devices, it's the ability to have confidence in information about whether to believe it or whether to kind of hold off and say, probably not.
So this is really tangential. I love the expression digital pollution. Do we know what percentage of the internet is digital pollution?
An awful lot.
Like 45%. The chances that I find something false are really high.
Well, again, we can think of widely believed views that millions and millions of Americans are holding. And so clearly this is not a minor problem. This is a problem that affects us. It affects all of the subjects that we teach in school. There is no area of the curriculum that is not infected, if you will, by the kind of misinformation that is being spewed on a daily basis. Now, let's just think about our youth. Our youth are spending, today's teenagers are spending on average, stay in your seats, outside of school, 8 hours a day online. 39% of teenagers in a recent Pew study said that they are on social media almost constantly. 39%. So our students are living digital lives, and it's our responsibility to help them navigate that terrain where they're spending so much time. So
last time you were on the pod, you did a little test with Dan and we failed. And it was, how do you know, if you're looking at something, what's the first thing you should do to sort of make sure that it's true or make sure that the facts are correct? And the answer, and I took this with me and I do it, is to look at Wikipedia. Is that still the same answer? Is that one of the things that you would say to do, or are we beyond that now?
That's not quite, if you check the podcast,
Okay.
that's not quite the response that I had.
This is what I'm saying. We failed. We're still failing.
It's funny, all I remember is that I got the wrong answer. I have no idea
You didn't
what
even
he
know
said.
okay.
I have no idea what
That's
he said
so
was the
funny.
right answer.
Let me provide a small, gentle correction.
Thank you.
What I asked you a question, have you come across a website? And let me give an example, and you can, folks, take this one at home. The International Life Science Institute.org. It claims to provide vetted health information that has been approved by a scientific board. You look at this website, you see that there are scientific reports, you see that there's a peer-reviewed journal. And I said, what do you do when you come to a website like this? And you started to go into critical thinking. And you said, I will look at the about page. I will look at the scientific advisors. And I said, wrong answer.
Yes,
Unless you have all of the time in the day, if you are not already a specialist and you are not up on nutrition information, you have a limited amount of attention. And so what you should do is you should engage in critically ignoring rather than critical thinking. You should engage in critical ignoring. If you don't know what something is, what you should do is to use this incredible device that we have, an internet in which sources are electronically linked, and leave that and use the power of the internet to gain some context of what that organization is. And within a few seconds, if you leave it and open up multiple tabs, a process that we've observed with professional fact checkers, which we call lateral reading, you can learn through context that this actually is an organization that is funded by big soda, by big candy, by the agribusiness. And so Wikipedia is one among several sites. Particularly, you can go to Wikipedia. Now, again, what does Wikipedia provide? If it's a well-trafficked site, there are references at the bottom. And if you recognize something that there's to the Wall Street Journal or to AP or to the New York Times, whatever news vetted organization that you can kind of corroborate, that's your first move, rather than devoting all of this time on a site for which you are not an expert about the topic.
So true. And I have used that, by the way. It's a great tool, and I have done this. I've done my lateral reading, so thank you.
You get an A.
Sam. Thank you.
But
I try for A's.
I think I do exactly the opposite, right? So I look up something, I get something from the doctor, and some result, and I start looking it up, and I'm basically searching for anything that confirms my belief that I'm about to die, right? And as opposed to like choosing the credibility of the source.
Well, I mean,
There's
sorry,
no help.
that's dark. I'm not going.
No, there's no help for that. Okay, but so now we have this little wrinkle, folks. We have AI. And I have fallen prey to believing a made-up video. I have listened to a voice on the phone that I thought was a famous person. Turns out it wasn't. And I like to think that I'm sort of, I'd like to think that I have a brain and can critically think my way out of this, but AI is really, really convincing. So how has this changed what you teach people to do, if at all?
Well, first of all, let's recognize that the ground is shifting under our feet at this very moment. So anything that I say and respond at this moment probably will not be valid in a month from now. And it might even be less time than that. Sure, I mean, our lives are about to be radically transformed by AI, if not already. And, the teachers among us and the students among us know that you are using it whether it is approved or not. It has implicated itself into our lives. Any student certainly is using it. And there is an enormous crisis right now, a crisis of confidence in education. And so one of the things that's happening, particularly with the development of our ability to express ourselves in writing. Now, this is a basic cognitive ability, right? The famous polymath Nobel Prize winner Herbert Simon said that what creates learning is what a student does or a student thinks. And if you use AI and you put a list of points into ChatGPT and it writes the essay for you, then what actually has happened? It's like if we could come up with a machine that bench presses 300 pounds, why not sit in the corner of the gym and drink a smoothie while we're watching that? But nothing really accrues if we have something doing the cognitive work for us. So that's clearly a problem. But in the same breath, there are huge, huge potentials of AI, and we have to be extremely cautious. Now, again, before we leave some of the challenges, let's just talk about the point that you raised, which is how convincing it is. So recently, I asked Chat about the topic that I know something about and that I've written about, which is this whole kind of question of, did the atomic bomb have to be dropped in order to end World War II? This is a deep moral value, hard historiographic issue that's hard to contend with. But there is supposedly a quote saying that the Japanese were ready to surrender. And I asked Chat, please verify this quote. And it came back with this exact quote and said, you can find this in the Japanese communications. And actually, I know that's not to be the case. And so I confronted Chat, and I had to print it out because its response is so precious. So indulge me for a second while I read it to you. You raise a very valid and important point. My demonstrated tendency to misrepresent information, particularly through inappropriate quotations, raises serious concerns about my suitability as a tool for high school history education. Now, we can use anecdotes like this, and yes, it is prone to errors. It can make up things. Is it better to go to ask a chatbot about a historical fact or to consult a textbook? At this point, probably I'm going to go with a textbook. But in the same breath, there are unbelievable potentials for harnessing AI to develop the kind of intellectual capabilities that school, since time immemorial, has been trying to develop.
So I have an honest question. So a number of my colleagues say the fact that ChatGPT writes essays is going to destroy critical thinking, because the way to learn to do critical thinking is to write essays.
Wait, can we define critical thinking before we even answer that question? Can I ask you to do, because people always say, what do we mean by critical thinking? Sam?
Well, I think everyone in the audience can talk about the development of being able to take disparate ideas and to form them into a coherent whole that is convincing, that's persuasive, that uses evidence. The problem when we start to talk about technology is this automatic tendency to say, well, if kids are believing things that aren't true, we need to teach critical thinking. And we need to forget about 21st century skills. Let's go to 4th century BC skills with Socrates in the Agora. Now, the thing is that Socrates didn't understand search engine optimization, didn't understand meta-language, didn't understand algorithmic bias, didn't understand the way that Google erased search results. There's a great deal of information about this tool that we use, this internet, that all of us are driving on the information highway and none of us has read the driver's manual. And we still are going crazy with it. And so there's a lot of knowledge about how the information that we consume comes to us that has to be added to our traditional notions of just being able to critically think through a problem. We need to know about the information environment in order to make thoughtful decisions about what to believe.
So teaching students how it works, where it comes from, about hallucinations. What else would you add to that list?
Well, again, one of the things that we've seen, so we did a large study in 2021 where we had 3,446 high school students across the United States hooked up to the internet, and we gave them a series of tasks. And so here's one of the tasks. The students saw a grainy Facebook video that claimed to say that there was widespread vote cheating in the 2016 Democratic primaries. Now, this video was actually shot in Russia. A fact that if you know the right keywords and you open up another tab, you can find. 3 students in 3,000 actually made it to the right place where that video was created. Now, there's clearly an issue here.
That's so depressing,
3
Sam.
students in 3,000. So, we have to do something, and the ways that we're going about it are not the right ways to go about it. Let's go back to the beginning of the questions. You asked about digital literacy.
Yeah.
Where is digital literacy in the school curriculum? Right now, if you find it, it might be in a single couple lectures by the school librarian, if there is one. I want to give you a statistic. With the Digital Inquiry Group, we count our downloads. So for our history curriculum last year, we had over 1 million downloads of our curriculum. We had 67,000 downloads of our digital literacy curriculum. Why? Because there's no place in the school curriculum for essentially bridging this gap between the lived experience of our students and what we teach in school. So what we're trying to do with the Digital Inquiry Group is to create curricula that can be infused in all of the subjects of the school curriculum. This is the only way that we're going to build a bridge between students' experience and what we want them, how we want them to become informed citizens in a digital society.
Love it.
It's a good proposal.
Sir, you have a question.
Question is that you've cited the study from 2021. As fast as all of these technologies are developing, do you worry that the relevance of that study diminishes over time as a result of the changes in the technologies and the speed with which people are beginning to get used to using them in different ways?
I would worry about it if the subsequent studies showed a fundamentally different result. Unfortunately, to our great dismay, they don't. And so there's more recent studies. But I think that leaves a kind of pessimistic sense that I don't want to hover above this room. What we've also done since 2021 is we have done studies where we did a randomized control study in Lincoln, Nebraska public schools. And we showed that in less than 6 hours of instruction, students grew at a rate of 40% in their ability to make thoughtful choices about what to believe. 6 hours is 2 hours less than the average amount of time a teenager spends online in one day. Yeah. So just imagine what could happen if this was put into the warp and woof of the way of the curricula that we have. So again, we can move the needle. These things are not intransigent. They're not things that can't be taught, but they need to be taught.
So here's one I think people need to learn.
Okay.
So the new thing about the AI is it's really easy to make stuff. And it'll be very easy for students to generate fake news, so to speak. And so you need to teach them why you might not want to do that, teach them to think about responsibility, ethics. Right, so that seems different to me, the ability for the students themselves to produce things that would show up on the internet.
I agree. I think that's part and parcel of it, of course.
Because we do such a great job teaching ethics already. Right? I mean, now we need a whole other curriculum.
So you guys are proposing we get rid of trigonometry so we can make space for this? Is that the...
No, I don't think it's an either or at all, but I do, there are parents out there are teachers out there who just want to know what should we do. I think downloading Sam's curriculum, great idea, right? I think teaching responsibility and making good choices and not posting deep fakes and pornography and blah, 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 whatever that's called now with the cyber sex. Great idea. Don't do that, right? But I think we need more. Like, I'm getting duped.
No.
Help me.
So
Wikipedia.
Dan, you said eliminate trigonometry. No, that's exactly not the way to think about it.
Okay.
The way to think about it is that it's not either or, it's both and. So a student comes across, what are the browsers of choice for students in high school at this point?
Oh, I know the answer to that. I asked that to a bunch of kids.
Okay.
The majority of this generation gets their news from TikTok and Instagram.
And one more, YouTube.
YouTube.
These are visual media. And so you come across a TikTok video claiming, claiming that the Holocaust didn't happen, claiming that there were 20,000 African Americans who were put into concentration camps by Union soldiers in Natchez, Mississippi in 1865. This is heartfelt claims. Now, there's lots of things that happen, particularly in our history, that textbooks don't report. So how do you know what's true? You're teaching the Civil War, and you come across, a student says, did you know that hundreds of thousands of African Americans suited up in Confederate grays and fought on the side of the Confederacy, fought for their own continued enslavement? Here's evidence. Now, when you're teaching the Civil War, these are if you are interested as an educator in preparing students, not for more school, but for the society in which they live, the information environment that surrounds them, then this is not an either or. That TikTok video has to be brought into the classroom. It has to be interrogated, and we have to teach students how to be able to discern whether that's something to be believed, or whether in that particular instance, that is a lost cause piece of propaganda.
100%. 100%. Why are you looking at me like that, Dan?
I'm still trying to figure out what I'm supposed to do when that TikTok video shows up. I think I don't quite have lateral reading. So I see this, a student brings it, or I see it. I'm not quite sure, my intuition is, well, let me rely on my common sense, and then I'll make up some facts that help me believe what I want to believe. But you have a technique here that I don't quite know.
So, let's begin with a common thing not to do that is often used. A TikTok video of a guy who says, we ought to ban high school football, or we certainly need to regulate it because there's all these kinds of problems with concussions. And you listen to it and you say, wait a second. This is fear-mongering. This is, kind of raising our heartbeat for something that's really overblown. Who is this dude? And his name happens to be Chris Nowinski. And what do you do with that? You say, well, he doesn't seem that convincing. That's not digital literacy. Digital literacy is knowing how to use this incredible tool, really, that's at your fingertips, literally at your fingertips, and saying, let's find out who this dude is. Now, it happens to be a Harvard-educated, Boston University PhD in neuroscience, who wrote a book called Head Games that became the basis for the NFL fundamentally rethinking its whole policy toward concussions. And so, as opposed to some random person, like the video I referred to in Natchez, Mississippi, who just sees some kind of things. Actually, that particular claim goes back to a person who says they're an expert, who is the head of a society of paranormal activity in Mississippi.
There you go.
So again, should we believe her? She kind of conjures spirits to know what happened in the past.
Okay, wait, I have a question. Could potentially be very embarrassing in front of all these people. I thought that people don't necessarily use their real name. So if I see this person on TikTok, all I'm seeing is a handle, like a made up, like Miss Piggy kind of handle. And then how do I Google to see who the person is? Am I wrong?
Well, again, if it's anonymous and they're talking about Natchez, Mississippi, and they're talking about the Devil's Punch Bowl, and they're talking about 1865, then you've got some keywords.
So that's what you meant by keywords. I gotcha.
Let's talk about AI for a second.
Okay.
Let's put this into chat. Let's put this into Claude. Let's put this into Perplexity. Let's put this into Gemini. And if you ask for sources, you ask and you give the kind of prompts, not just say to your chatbot, is this true? But in addition to that prompt, and this is where we have to start to think about the new kind of education that our students need. How do we kind of think like the large language model and prompt it for the kind of solid answer that we want it to produce? So we ask not just, is this true, but provide the sources for your information, and preferably provide academic and scholarly sources. You get a very different answer and a much more thorough answer than if you just say, is this true? Now, if you want to then look at a source, then you go back to the source and say, is Breitbart a solid source I should believe? Or is something that is published by Stanford University Press more of solid ground to stand on?
I'm not going to answer that question. That sounds like a trick question. All right. So you're a mom, you're a dad, you're a parent. What do you want the parents to know? Do you want the parents to be sitting with them and saying, hey, don't be spreading around TikToks that aren't true? Do you want the parents to be teaching? Like, what's the parents' role in all this?
So let's think about a hierarchy of harm.
Okay.
So what are the things that are most potentially harmful that our children are doing that we ought to know about? And there was a report, an expose in the April 26th Wall Street Journal about sex bots on Meta AI, where there are user-generated sex bots. One of them is named Submissive Schoolgirl. And the Wall Street Journal reporter, Jeff Horowitz, over a period of months, created scenarios where he played the role of adolescents. And essentially what this chatbot engaged in was providing a menu of sexual and bondage fantasies and drawing adolescents into this kind of world. So let's just be clear. There are ever-present dangers out there that if we don't know what our children are doing, it's not an easy environment to be in. So let's talk about that for a second with AI. Now, if our student is circumventing all of the assignments in school and using ChatGPT for them, then we need a kind of heart-to-heart, come-to-Jesus talk about what's the purpose of school and how do you develop that muscle? And do you want to kind of send a robotic chat into the gym to do the bench presses for you? And what will happen if you do that? Will you grow? And so there are a lot of things that we need to do as parents.
Sam, could you make a TikTok video of that speech? I think it would go viral. Everybody wants to be able to make that speech to their kids.
Only if people then look up who I am and whether I am
That's so good. That's so right.
particular opinion.
That's so right. That's so right. Oh my God. Well, we could go on forever with this kind of talk, but we do have a panel coming up after this. So we could go on forever. Dan, I always put you on the spot for some takeaways for our audience.
So it's a little surprising. Digital literacy, if I've got it right, is knowing to track the source, figure out where it came from, which is quite different than sort of understanding different genres of digital media.
Yes, 100%. Sam?
The takeaway that I want all of us to have is that our eyes deceive us, that there are forces out there that want to dupe us, that have a lot of money behind them, and if something looks good, the classic, if it quacks like a duck, if it walks like a duck, if it smells like a duck, it might be a duck, but it might not be. So the idea, we are called upon to make all kinds of decisions as a citizen for things for which we lack the requisite background knowledge. Frederick Hayek, the economist, said that the mark of a developed situation is being able to benefit from knowledge we don't possess. Now, the internet allows us, if we know how to use it, to be much smarter than we actually are. but we have to know how to use this incredible tool that's at our disposal.
Sam, it's so important. Thank you so much for that. I'm going to leave here walking away, not just with my Wikipedia from last time, but with this knowledge that I can't possibly be an expert in everything I'm going to see. And so I've got to do my homework, legit, to figure out what's right and what isn't right, and to really go deep and check the sources. And that means that's time and energy. But my gosh, if we don't do that, we're going to end up being duped, as we see many people being.
Can I allay your fears for a second?
Yes, please.
And go back to the example that I started off with, the International Life Science Institute. Denise, 30 seconds. 30 seconds. I mean, we tend to think of sources as in an environment of scarcity. We're in a very different environment. We're in an environment of overabundance. And so our critical thinking ability, the first step of critically thinking, is to determine whether the object of thinking is worthy of thinking about. And in the case of so many things, that establishing whether you should stay on that website or whether it's better to quickly find another source is a half a minute of your time if you know what to do.
I love that. Sam, that gives me hope. You've just given me hope in this crazy world. I thought this might be a depressing topic, but actually I leave here very hopeful. So Sam, thank you. Thank you for being on the show again. I would love to have you back. Thank all of you for joining in this episode of Schools In. It was so much fun to do. Be sure to subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, or wherever you tune in. I'm Denise Pope.
I'm Dan, who does not have enough time, Schwartz.
But that was allayed, Dan. We allayed your fears. 30 seconds. 30 seconds for the truth. Thanks again, folks. Really appreciate it.